never thought the world could change in a single night. When I close my eyes now, I can still smell the damp plaster and hear the creak of old gurney wheels. This isn't a story about heroics. It's about how I stayed alive during the first 12 hours of something no one was ready for. 3 days before it began, I'd been working double shifts as an ER nurse at St. Haven's Hospital, a crumbling building on the edge of town. Budget cuts had closed it years ago, but a skeleton staff kept the emergency wing open for overflow. The place was already unsettling. Peeling paint, flickering lights, elevators that sighed like they were tired of existing. That night, my shift ended late. Rain slicked the parking lot, and thunder rolled over the hills. I remember thinking I'd rather stay inside than drive home through the storm. I didn't know that choice would keep me breathing. It started just after midnight. A code, blue, blared overhead, then cut off mid-word, like someone had yanked the cord. The halls went strangely quiet, too quiet. Then came the first scream, sharp, panicked. I grabbed a flashlight, my sneakers squeaking on the linoleum as I headed toward the ER bay. The automatic doors stood open, rain blowing in. A man stumbled inside, clothes torn, eyes wide like cracked glass. He didn't speak. He just collapsed. When I checked his pulse, nothing, but his fingers twitched. Before I could react, a crash echoed from the triage room. Another scream, then a wet, guttural growl. I ran to the doorway and froze. 2 security guards struggled with a patient who should have been unconscious. The patient's skin was pale, eyes clouded, but his movements were frantic, jerky. He bit one guard's arm. I heard the snap of teeth on flesh. The guard dropped, screaming. Something primal told me to move. I backed away, heart hammering, the flashlight trembling in my hand. Within minutes, the power flickered and died. Red emergency lights bathed the corridor in a dull, bloody glow. Through the silence came new sounds, shuffling steps, low moans, the clatter of something metal falling. I ducked into the supply closet, slammed the door, and tried not to breathe. My phone buzzed. An emergency alert. Unknown viral outbreak. Shelter in place. Avoid contact with infected individuals. No mention of what the infected did, but I already knew. Stayed hidden for what felt like forever. Every creak of the building stretched my nerves like wire. Occasionally, footsteps dragged past the closet, slow, uneven. Once, a faint thud rattled the door handle. I pressed my back to the shelves, barely daring to swallow. Time blurred. The smell of disinfectant mixed with a sour, metallic odor, like old pennies and damp earth. I knew I couldn't stay there. Supplies were limited, and if the infected broke in, I'd be trapped. At 4 a.m., I eased the door open. The hallway was empty, except for a rolling IV stand tipped on its side. Somewhere above, an alarm chirped weakly. I moved toward the stairwell, flashlight off, relying on the red glow. On the third-floor landing, I heard the wet scrape of feet. I pressed against the wall. A figure lurched into view. A nurse I knew. Face slack, eyes clouded white. She sniffed the air like she smelled me. I held my breath until she shuffled past, her shoes dragging through a streak of dark fluid. Only when she disappeared did I move. I reached the old surgical wing, long abandoned. Operating rooms with broken lamps, tables covered in dusty sheets. It felt like stepping into someone else's nightmare. I barricaded myself in an OR, pushing a cabinet against the door. The room was icy. Somewhere, Water dripped steadily, echoing like a slow clock. I sat in the corner, knees to my chest, forcing slow breaths. My mind kept replaying the guard's scream, the nurse's pale eyes. Was the city outside the same? Were we already too late? Around 6 a.m., faint sunlight seeped through cracked windows. For a moment, I let myself believe I might last the day. Then the pounding began. Something, maybe several things, rammed the OR door, rattling the cabinet. Low growls seeped through the cracks, animalistic but human. I gripped a metal scalpel tray, the only weapon I had. The pounding grew frantic. The cabinet scraped inch by inch across the floor. I whispered to myself, "Not like this. Not like this." Then, silence. I waited, every nerve screaming. A distant crash echoed down the hall, drawing them away. I don't know what caused it. Maybe another survivor. I never found out. By 7:30, I forced myself to move. I slipped through side corridors, avoiding the main halls, where guttural moans still drifted. The hospital's back exit led to an old ambulance bay. Rain had stopped. Mist clung to the asphalt. Bodies lay scattered near the gate, some stirring, some perfectly still. I didn't check which were which. I climbed the perimeter fence, hands slick with rust and sweat, and dropped to the other side. My knees buckled, but I kept running until the hospital was just a gray smudge in the morning haze. I reached a residential block and hid in an empty bus shelter. My phone showed dozens of emergency alerts. Cities under lockdown, the word outbreak flashing everywhere. Sirens wailed in the distance. I'd survived 12 hours. But as I sat there, soaked and shaking, I knew it wasn't over. The world I'd known, the late shifts, the quiet drives home, the routine was gone. Sometimes, when I try to sleep, I still hear the pounding on that OR door. I don't know if anyone else from St. Havens made it out. I don't know if I truly did.